of Chip Talks. So I'm super excited to start these podcasts to kind of begin to tell you guys a lot about what I know or what I've learned about the endocannabinoid system over the years. Eventually, I'll be able to do these without glasses. For the most part, I'm just going to talk. I may go through presentations. If I do, I'm going to just use those really more as a reference point for me and what I'm doing in the conversation and kind of the points that I want to make. If you're listening and not viewing, again, that can get a little annoying. So we'll try to do that as many of these without presentations and slides as we can. We certainly are going to have guests. So I just talked to a future guest, just got off the phone with him. He's going to be super interesting. He's been in the area of, let's say, herbs, herbal medicine, natural products for many, many years. He has a podcast. He's interviewed just hundreds and hundreds of people about natural products. So he's got a really, really unique perspective. I'm also working on some really, interesting guests that, perhaps their husbands are famous people or, things like that. People that have health conditions that we've helped over the years, or people that have health conditions that they need help with now. So to me, it's, real world demonstrations of what we're talking about, because on this show, we're going to talk a lot about science and theory, if you will. But that theory all applies to real world. These are things that I consult with people. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm really not a health professional. I'm a researcher. I know a lot about the endocannabinoid system. But by virtue of that, I'm a good mechanic, I guess is the best way to say it. I understand, how your vehicle works and understand how to fix it when it's gone wonky. So by virtue of that, I do a lot of consulting. And again, all those people know I'm not a physician. So please don't, all you doctors out there, don't come after me. So I make that pretty clear. And again, I don't do anything that you do. I don't diagnose. I don't treat. I determine things and I, throw natural products at it. But we've been very effective at doing that over the years. So one of the things that we may do, like we may get some of our autism, families to come on and talk about, kind of where they were at and what happened and where they're at now. Or we may get some other people to come on. And again, if you have someone who has health issues, that is something that we do, that I do. So chip@newpharma.com. Feel free to contact me and we'll set up an appointment and get to the bottom of kind of what's going on with you. Saying all that, what the people that land in our lab, and I'm honored by this, honestly, because this is what I want. I get the worst of the worst of the worst cases. So, folks who've been to the doctor who they've lost hope, and they can't get any better and are getting worse, the worst of human ailments land in my lab. And generally, we're able to help them all, which is pretty cool. So that kind of leads to the discussion that I want to have today. And it's a big discussion, so there's a lot to this discussion. We can get in the weeds about it, certainly, and I don't know where I'm going to go when I start talking, so no telling what we're going to get into. But I have a framework and a direction of information, let's say, that I want to give you guys. Now, what do we have at New Pharma? Well, at our core, what we really have is knowledge, and it's knowledge, that I've acquired. Some of it we have in patents. I'm becoming less of a fan of patents. Let's just say I really feel like the knowledge that I get is led or guided, by my higher power, by God. And I follow, and I've kind of figured out the system. I'll tell you my system, which is kind of cool. I follow my curiosity. And if you guys have areas of interest, this has always been my area of interest. It's, been my area of interest, all my life, or whatever that is for you. You'll find that if you follow your curiosity will always, always, always lead to knowledge, okay? And so once you've acquired that knowledge, and this is just my beliefs, this isn't up to you, but these are my beliefs, that once I've acquired that knowledge, I'm incumbent. It's required of me. That's why I have the knowledge to teach it to you. So I'm able to perhaps, ferret things out that other people aren't. But again, I don't need to miserly hold on to that and, try to make a business model out of that. I need to give that to you. I need to teach that to you. Now, if I can make a living doing that, then that's great and wonderful, and that's a way that God can kind of support me and my message, so to speak. So anyway, that's a little bit of what Chip thinks, philosophically. So there you go. And over time, you're going to hear me talk a lot about God. If that turns you off, then this probably isn't a show for you. You're going to hear me talk a lot about spirit and spiritual development, because in my mind, again, this is the way that I've analyzed things, and this is where my science is taking this. Is we're a canister. We're this thing, this physical incarnation here on this earth is a vehicle. It's a very sophisticated vehicle. And again, it's of God. It's the most amazing thing probably that's on this earth, except other vehicles. So it's an amazing vehicle, but it's meant to house a spirit, right? So a multidimensional spirit, call it your soul, call it whatever your paradigm, thinks of it. So we're kind of two things in this reality. Now, again, I would think that if that's true, one of the highest truths that we need to figure out is how to honor this vehicle, how to make this vehicle the best environment, let's say, for our soul. So how do we really make it warm and fuzzy, in soul land? Well, we have to have a healthy vehicle, right? And everything in our environment is trending the wrong way. Okay, so everything, and really, honest to God, it's if you create your own environment, so like if you live on a farm and you kind of feed yourselves or sustain yourselves, then that you're creating your own environment. But if you live kind of in the world that most of us do, if you live in a city or whatever, the environment that you live in is, you're not living in an environment you're creating. You're living in an environment someone else is creating for you. And most of those environments are not designed to make us healthy. They're designed to make us sick. That's pretty sad, because that's a comment on this world. But I do think that this world is changing. I think that's why people like me are, here to help change it. We break down paradigms, we tell truths. And so that's what we'll do here on this show, is we'll talk a lot of truth and we'll tell a lot of truths. So the truth I want to talk to you guys about today is really about something called our immune system. If you think about the things that you have to do as an organism, or that any organism has to do, any cell has to do, well, one of the most important things is defend ourselves. So there's always things out there that want to eat us, that want to attack us, that want to break us down, that want to decay us, that want to decompose us. Most of these things are bacterial, honestly, and some of them are inside of us. So that's why we have to have a very, very good immune system to be able to defend ourselves. You're constantly in the process of defending yourself. So just the fact that we have inflammation is an indication that we have some kind of attack going on. If you think about just your skin, oops, there we go, camera's backwards. So if you think about your skin, in something like poison ivy, right? So my skin just doesn't inflame. It just doesn't inflame all of a sudden, right? So it just doesn't spontaneously erupt into inflammation. That can't happen. So you have the stimulus response. So, if I rub poison ivy on my skin, that is an inflammatory. So that's going to cause me to inflame, and I'm going to be able to see that. My skin's going to get red and puffy and irritated, and depending on my allergic reaction, I'm going to puff and ooze or whatever. Allergic reaction. Ooh, we're going to talk about that in a second. Sorry, pharma. Going to tell some truth there. But anyway, so, inflammation is a result of an attack, bacterial attack, fungal attack. It could be traumatic, certainly, so you could get run over by something, but, it's a response, right? So when we say, oh, we're eating a lot of inflammatory foods, what does that really mean? Well, we're eating foods that will help with inflammation, that will promote inflammation. And just by virtue of that statement, should we also be eating foods that help with anti-inflammation, deflammation, and we should and we don't, so that's why 80% of us literally will die of an inflammatory disease, is because we just don't eat. It's this simple. We don't eat enough monounsaturated fats, and we don't eat enough omega-3 fatty acids. So anytime you have inflammation, that's an immune response. Your body is under attack and you're responding to that attack, or your body is traumatized and you're trying to repair that area of trauma. You have two different types of immune response, and they're very important. And this is important to understand. So if you're out there and you've just had a baby, or you have a baby that's under 3, that baby does not have the same immune response that you do. That baby cannot. You have two types of immune response, and you can think of it as sort of the first time I see something, I'm going to try to kill it, or I'm going to try to engulf it. So you do something called, what's it called? Phagocytes are the name of the cells, but they'll sort of engulf another cell inside of them, and that's the way they neutralize that cell. So that is something called a type 1 immune response. And generally that is an extracellular response. So it's, first time you see something, it's in your blood, it's in your lymph, it's, just entered you. Again, you're going to try to encapsulate it, get it out of you, or kill it. A baby, a neonate, someone under, let's say, 3 years of age, does not marshal a type 1 defense. They have a little bit of a type 1 defense, and a lot of that is what they will get, the immune mediators they'll get from breast milk, right? So they can marshal a little bit of a defense, but it's not of their own doing. It's by mediators that they've inherited. They can do a Th2 response, or a type 2 immune response, and that's more what we think of as antibodies. So if something's really infected us, we're really sick with it, we'll do a type 2 response, and that is an antibody type response. And again, the immune mediators are a little different in that response. Now, the cool thing about that is, and again, if you're an endocannabinoid person like I am, well, the endocannabinoid system is our master regulatory system. So how does it, again, this is all just mechanics. I'm just teaching you to be a good mechanic. I'm teaching you about the automobile that you're going to be working on and how to repair it, view it, fix it. Okay, so again, how does this work? How do you even marshal an immune response? Well, that happens inside your bones. You actually build stem cells that you use for an immune response inside your bones, inside osteoblasts. The endocannabinoid system is what stimulates those to form, stimulates those to express, and then stimulates those to differentiate. So those stem cells are what become like things that you need to do a Th1 or type 1 response, and things you need to do a Th2 or type 2 response. So all of these things come from stem cells that are built in our bones, but basically controlled and managed by the endocannabinoid system based on the type of response that we'll have to marshal. So isn't that really cool? Now, CBDs augment, supplement, and help that process, as do THC, actually. So all of that can be helped, by the ingestion of cannabinoids or the ingestion of CBD. CBDs have a way to help us in very, very broad ways. And when I say CBDs, I'm not talking directly about cannabidiol. That molecule has very specific actions. When I say CBDs, I'm kind of referring to everything that's not THC. So I'll try to be more specific when I do that, but just, I have that bias. So just recognize that when I'm saying CBD, I'm kind of talking about all of the things that are in a distillate or the cannabis plant that are not THC, all the cannabinoids. Okay, so the immune system, I want to tell you guys a little bit of a story. Again, I'm always going to, have reasons for why I view things. And this is just my paradigm. It's up to you guys really to determine your own paradigm here, but I'm going to give you my truths. I'm going to tell you my truths. So in my world, I think we're being deceived. I think there's a lot of truth about human health that is known, that is not being taught to us right now. And I am a mathematician. I'm a good mechanic. I'm also a good why guy. So I'm really good at taking, a piece here, and a piece here, and a piece here, and a piece here, pulling all those together and understanding a bigger picture. And it's, I'm a mathematician, so I guess a logical gift or however you want to look at it. But, I've been at this long enough to kind of see the pattern and understand the game, so to speak. And so here's what, and again, I want to tell you this in the context of the immune system and something that we all know about and kind of, how it came to be and how it was put in place, because this will blow you away, frankly. So I got to first of all tell you about how the business model came to be and how the business model was put into place. So, you're suffering. The reason you don't know about human health, the reason that we are, our model treats symptoms, not causes, is it's a business model. It's intentional. It's intentional to not teach you the truth. It's intentional to keep you sick and then get you better. Because it's a business model. It was intentionally put in place. The thing that started it was the Flexner Report in 1907. Again, that was produced through the Carnegie Mellon Foundation with help from the Rockefeller Foundation. What they did was you needed a model, you needed an example. So they took the Bayer model that was happening in Germany through IG Farben, the company that gave you Xylon gas, by the way, through IG Farben. They said, yeah, that's our model. And so what they did was they went around to all the medical schools, all the medical labs, all the physicians and said, you guys are doing it all wrong. The Germans are way ahead of us. They've got it all figured out. We're going to adopt the German model of pharma medicine, and we're going to do that right now. And so by the 1930s, if anything that I say would be heresy, heretical, Chip is a crank, a snake oil salesman, a charlatan, whatever they call me, right? But that's the way that they basically demonized anyone who wasn't doing it their way, and forced everyone to comply. They built the medical schools, they built the curriculum in the medical schools. And so a lot of what we know about how we work is chaos and confusion, and that's on purpose. Again, if you're a really smart doctor and I want to keep this business model intact, I got to kind of do some chaos and confusion so that you don't figure out the bigger picture. Okay, so let's talk through some pieces of that. Again, the Flexner Report was 1907-ish, I think, if I recall. So I don't have that sitting here right in front of me, but you guys can just jump on the internet, look up Flexner Report. I'm sure you're going to want to go, Chip, he's not right. He's telling us a bunch of crap. So yeah, look it up. It's worth it. This next thing you're really going to want to look up, though. So this is really, really cool. I think it's nefarious. It's evil. But it tells you a lot about kind of how we've been manipulated, for lack of a better word. So I like old books. Again, a lot of our history, has been changed, honestly. And again, how do you find that out? Encyclopedias. They are wonderful books. They go all, we've had encyclopedias since the 1800s. So my wife will occasionally buy me, encyclopedias of different years and stuff. So she recently bought me, and these are expensive, so we're sort of buying them over time. And but anyway, she bought me a volume, I think A through F from the 1870s. And so I'm flipping through there, and I want to confirm something that I already know. And that is that the word, you guys are going to freak out. You ready? Here it is. The word allergy did not exist before 1900. Now, if you go to my Facebook page, Chip Paul, you'll see this. I actually took a picture of it in the encyclopedia, because there is no word allergy. There's no word anaphylaxis. There's no word allergen. There's no word, allergic reaction. None of those words existed before 1900. And the reason for that is because allergies are created. Now, again, nature can cause a situation that will create, the potential for allergy inside of you, let's say. But I'll tell you how I can create it inside of you right now. And this appears to be the way and what was done. Well, let me tell you real quick about how allergies happen. So they were experimenting with a dog, and this dog, for whatever reason, they were trying to get the dog to be immune to man-o-war venom. And they understood this idea that our body will build a natural immunity to outside pathogens, foreign things. And so that's what they were trying to do in this dog to see if they could do it. So they gave the dog a little bit of man-o-war venom, and nothing happened to the dog. They gave the dog a little more a month later. I can't remember the time frame, but they gave the dog a little bit more after a period of time. Nothing happened to the dog. The third time they gave man-o-war venom to the dog had anaphylactic shock, which was not even a word at the time, and died of an allergic reaction, which was not even a word at the time. Now, let's talk that through as to what happened to that dog, and kind of this is useful information. I'm not going to be too hard on the business model, although I personally think the business model is evil. But that's up to you to decide. Publicly, I'm not going to rail on them too much. But here's what the business model did with that information. Well, here's what I know from science, okay? So, and again, I'm going to describe to you what the business model knew and how the business model used that potentially. So, mammals have a special antibody that only mammals have. It's an antibody called IgE. And IgE is, it's arguable whether it causes allergies or whether it's in response to an allergic reaction, but it is 1000% associated with allergies. Okay, so here's what happens. So if in this IgE antibody in mammals is produced from venomous bites, all right? So if you get bit by a snake, whack, you get bit by a snake, the molecules in venom are very stable. They're poison, they're going to kill you, but they're very stable molecules. And so what this IgE does is it looks for stable molecules and it binds them and tries to neutralize them. And so you kind of have an allergic response, so to speak, to the venom or whatever it is that those guys bind to. So let's say it this way. If you have that response, whatever's in you that's a stable molecule, you're going to be allergic to, including snake venom or bee sting or hornet sting. Now, let me ask you a question. When they injected this dog with man-o-war venom, they injected him with a hypodermic needle. When you get a vaccine, you get injected with a hypodermic needle. Does your body understand the difference between a hypodermic needle and a snake bite? No, it does not. So when you get stuck with a hypodermic needle, your body does the same thing it would do if it gets bit by a snake. It releases this antibody called IgE. IgE will find the most stable molecules in your body and cause you to become allergic to them. If you're breathing dust at the time of your vaccination, guess what? If you eat any kind of grain right after that vaccination, guess what? You're going to have a gluten allergy. You're going to have a prolammin allergy. Again, if you breathe in a big old, bunch of hay, you're probably going to be subject to hay fever. Now, people they called it hay fever, before this, but people reported, some seasonal stuff. So it's not like, we didn't have some reaction to plants and pollens and things like that. But it was nothing like we have now, nothing like what's happened to us since these first experiments on Sir Dog with man-o-war venom. So food allergies, we didn't have much of at all. It only ever really reported deaths, of things like anaphylaxis, were people getting bitten by a snake or, stung by bees and things like that. So that's useful information, right? So if I can pierce you with a hypodermic needle and put you in a hyperallergic state, I can help you or hurt you with that information. And again, it's up to you to determine what's been done to you, whether you've been helped or hurt by that information. Now let's talk this through a little bit more. So our biggest, I want to run this concept by you, and we'll kind of talk this concept through, and then we'll leave it here for today. We're going to do a lot of these podcasts, so I think we're going to do, this one's kind of on the immune system. There's a lot more on the immune system that we'll drill into. We're definitely going to do one on fasting and fed, and that's coming up soon. That's a concept that everyone should understand. But again, if you go back and listen to podcast 1, so you'll hear in podcast 1 that I said that I'm going to refer back to podcast 1 all the time. What you're going to understand is that a lot of what ails us is bacteria. And bacteria is created inside of us as a response. It basically, we're allowed to create bacteria as a response to malnutrition, poor diet. And so the purpose of the bacteria inside of us in a good way is to offset nutritional deficiency and produce useful proteins that we need to run ourselves. So very important function, very important part of understanding how this human vehicle works is bacteria, its role and its function. But bacteria is a two-edged sword. So I'm going to put this in the context, this discussion in the context of a plant. But you can go back again to podcast 1 and relate this right back to mitochondria. So if your mitochondria are in the least efficient state, I would say we're like a plant in the dark with no water and no sunlight, right? So we're alive, but we're probably in the process of dying. We're rotting, we're subject to bacteria, and we're subject to disease. Well, why? Well, we created an environment and a diet that was conducive to promoting disease, not promoting health. If I took that same plant out in the sun and gave it all the nutrients it needs and the sunlight it needs, it would become extremely healthy. It would be way more capable of fighting off diseases. It would have a better immune system. It would live longer. It would be more a perfect expression of itself. Well, we're the same way, guys. If I create an environment for you that's conducive to disease, you're going to be a plant in the dark with no water. You're going to be subject to bacterial infections. You're going to be subject to all kinds of bacterial decay. You're going to be slowly rotting and dying. It's real easy to make you sicker if you're in that shape. Again, how do I move you out of that? That's what we talk about on this show. Mitochondrial function, mitochondrial health, fat process, so again, how do we get from this least efficient mitochondrial switch, which is a plant in the dark with no water, to this mid switch, which is a plant in the light with lots of nutrients and lots of water. So how do we learn to thrive? Well, we have to understand these principles, and we have to basically understand that the environment that has been created for us is not conducive to us thriving. We have to take back control of that environment, okay? So most of what's wrong with us, out of control bacteria. Can I create an environment where that's possible? Yeah. And again, it's when you, back to episode 1, but when we eat, it's all about the dietary fats. If I only feed you inflammatory dietary fats, you're going to have the most diverse gut biome possible to be able to offset that nutritional deficiency. You're going to have to make a lot of bacteria. If I throw sugar, dietary sugars on top of that, again, your good bacteria want to run on fiber, not sugar. Your bad bacteria want to run on sugar. So if I throw a bunch of sugar in an out-of-control bacterial situation, it just gets worse. It gets more out of control. It gets harder to manage. Siri, what is the cause of disease? Siri will say, pathogens. Siri, where do pathogens come from? Siri will say, bacteria. The cause, I just told you allergies are created. So again, do you think our Center for Infectious Disease and Allergies is telling you the truth about bacteria and infectious disease? It's highly unlikely. So again, I'm going to tell you the truth, and I'm going to tell you how to go find it on your own. I'm going to give you all the tools that you need. I'm going to give you my knowledge path. I'm going to give you everything that I'm getting, and everything that I've dug up. Okay, so again, how does this work in a big way? Well, back to episode 1. But as we eat there's 8 dietary fats that, will all kind of go on a triglyceride, if you will. And as we eat those 8 dietary fats, each one of those forms a different endocannabinoid. That is sent to our hypothalamus hippocampus, and our hypothalamus hippocampus sets a nutritional state. We develop a biome, a microbiome, as a reaction to that, to our dietary inputs. And that biome we try to manage as best as we can. But again, that biome or bacteria is where a lot of diseases come from. So if you're taking probiotics and you're not paying attention to what you're reacting to, your lack of dietary fats in the right ratios, then you're just adding fuel to an out of control fire. It's not going to help you. It's going to hurt you. You may be adding additional bacteria that could become pathogenic. So anyway, a lot to this. You're gonna hear me talk about this 100 ways from Sunday, because it's so important to our health. But most of our immune response, so most of kind of why our immune system gets engaged, gets fired up, and gets marshaled, is a result of bacteria, because we're constantly managing kind of this bacterial bloom up and bloom down. Your body is a macro machine, so meaning that we run at kind of a high level, this highest level, but it's also a micro machine. And in fact, it's a micro machine all the way down to the cellular level. So you may have cells that the mitochondria are running very efficiently in, and that would result in those cells being very healthy, and whatever those cells are associated with being super duper healthy. So you may have a super duper healthy heart, but other things may be getting a bit wonky. There's ways to adjust the function of any cell, of any mitochondria, but we're only as good as basically the expressions of these mitochondria. And again, they've got to run on dietary fats, and they're super susceptible to bacteria. Let me walk you through a disease state. I think we'll do that. So we'll walk through autism, let's say, under this model. And autism is complicated, but it's not. And I'll kind of talk you through that. And then we'll leave it there for this episode. So let's talk about autism a little bit. What is autism? Well, again, it's all, if we look at us from a mechanics perspective as a vehicle, autism is pretty easy to see what's wrong. And what it's a disease of oxidative stress. So the cells within an autistic person are in crisis. And inside of a cell, you have organelles. One of those is mitochondria, which we talk about quite a bit. You have a garbage can inside of a cell, and it's called a perioxome. So it kind of deals with stuff that we don't want to deal with, I guess, in your cell, kind of, we'll throw in the perioxome, and the perioxome will deal with it. Well, when you're under bacterial attack or your body is really stressed, you will try to throw as much energy as you can at that situation. When you do that, your mitochondria go to, I'm a plant in the sunshine with everything that I need to be able to throw everything that I can at that situation. So your mitochondria will flip to their sort of most efficient state. Not their mid-efficient state, just to be correct, but they will flip to that state. When they do, if they don't have the resources that they need, so let's say those cells don't have the oxygen that they need to be able to perform that fat-burning exercise, then those cells will get in crisis. So there's a need for more energy. The cells are flipping to high energy mode, but there's not enough resources to be able to perform those actions. And when that happens, a cell will go into oxidative stress. And that's when the perioxome gets engaged. So autistic people are under severe oxidative stress. Their perioxomes are all tweaked. Their mitochondria are all tweaked. And there's no question that autism is a disease of the mitochondria. What creates the situation? I think I know. Again, and this is all research backed. So I'll walk you through what I'm pretty sure causes the situation. And what that is an inability to deal with polyunsaturated fatty acids. So those would be omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. Now there's an enzyme that you use to be able to deal with these fatty acids, and it's something called delta-6 desaturase. It's a enzyme. It's an enzyme. That's an enzyme that's produced in our liver. So, I can test you to see if you're expressing delta-6 desaturase. And most severely autistic kids, it kind of fits and starts delta-6 desaturase. But what happens if you can't deal with polyunsaturated fatty acids? That's super severe. That's, if I was going to wreck you in a bad place, that'd be about the worst place that I could possibly wreck you. Because you build your frontline anti-inflammatories and inflammatories from omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. So your inflammatories you build from omega-6s, and your anti-inflammatories you build from omega-3s. So if you're autistic and you have a fit and start delta-6 desaturase, you don't build endocannabinoids like the rest of us do, and you don't build any or hardly any frontline anti-inflammatories or inflammatories. Okay, well, what have I just taught you about the human body and kind of how we work and what our makeup system is? Well, if we can't deal with these fatty acids, our makeup system is going to be our gut microbiome. So in a really cool way, our vehicles, if we're autistic, understand this situation, and we will develop a very unique and different gut microbiome. So all autistic people, and depending on the severity of the autism, will have it has a profile. I mean, I can tell you kind of what the profile looks like, but they'll all develop a gut biome that's very, very different from yours and mine. And the purpose of this biome is to, first of all, produce them all of the anti-inflammatories and inflammatories that they need to build an alternative immune system. And they literally build an alternative immune system. It works for the most part like ours, but the mediators come from the biome rather than omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. Now, regrettably, one of the mediators that has to be produced to save their lives, two of them actually, valproic acid and propionic acid. Both of these two acids are associated with, like I can give a rat autism with valproic or propionic acid, or give him the symptoms. With propionic acid, it can be reversed, and again, the way that you reverse it is just give that rat salt. So almost every severely autistic kiddo or autistic person will like a lot of salt, and it's just a reaction because they're trying to neutralize that propionic acid that's probably causing them cognitive difficulties, but also building them an alternative immune system, which is helping save their lives. So again, there's lots of research here. You guys can substantiate all that for yourselves, but kind of the cool thing about that is it's an evolution. So autistic people evolve around a pretty severe gene deficiency. The good news is we can re-stimulate that gene deficiency epigenetically. There's a lot of ways to do that and get it to begin to turn back on. And when that happens, again, they then start dealing with fatty acids properly and start building a proper biome, which theoretically, let's say, alleviates the problem. We're certainly seeing that anecdotally happen in what we do all the time. Okay, so that's kind of autism. But again, kind of works with these principles that I'm talking about. And again, if you can't deal with the fatty acids, so with autistic people, it's omega-3, omega-6. And again, a way to not be able to deal with them is just not eat them or eat them in the wrong ratios. But everything else is a response to that, guys. So, the highest truth I can teach you is eat the right dietary fats. Because that is the key to health. Mitochondrial efficiency, I'm calling the philosopher's stone. That's sort of a bold claim. If you're a person like me, an intellectual philosopher, a scientist, to claim that you hold the stone is a high claim, let's just say. But I claim I hold it. Again, it's not a fun thing. I'll give it to you. It's a lot of responsibility. It's a heavy burden, but I have to, got to teach it to you. So that's the nice thing. So again, listen to old Chip and I will teach you what I know of said philosopher's stone, which to me is just the mitochondria. The mitochondria are everything. If you want to go all philosophical, you fight a war of good and evil inside of you every day. You have mitochondria, wear your little white hat, and some of your bacteria wear your little black hat. And that's a pretty important war that we all fight. I would say that we've been losing that war as to overall human health, but I think we're going to turn the tide pretty soon. You know, more people know what I know, and again, as I can get these out and teach you guys what I know, you will have control over your health. They'll always, doctor, if you're out there freaking out, oh my gosh, chip is going to destroy our industry. No. Again, there's places for pharma, there's places for medicine. It just shouldn't be used to treat, 80% of what's wrong with us. That can be done with diet. Diet and behavior can treat 80% of what's wrong with us. Pharma sings in critical care and trauma care and acute care, and that's the place for it. So if you get shot or run over by something or in a war or have a heart attack, that's where modern medicine has just done an outstanding job of keeping us alive and, getting us to a place where then we can, treat ourselves with God's given nature. So anyway, that's all for today. Thank you.